Good morning. Welcome to Auburn Community Television and this episode of Meet the Artist. Meet the Artist is supported by the North Auburn Artist to introduce artists in our local community. Today is very special because our guest artist is a member of the North Auburn Artist. She has also invited us into her studio to talk with us but also give us a demonstration. This is a special treat because Jenninfer Johnson is an absolutely amazing metal sculpture artist.
Thank you.
Welcome, Jenninfer.
Thank you.
This is really exciting today.
Welcome to my studio.
I love it. And it is one of these that you come in and you first think it's absolute chaos, but this is really organized chaos.
It's organized chaos. If it were clean, I wouldn't be able to get anything done.
Well, I always love talking with you, and you have been on our show in the past, and always appreciate the time that you give us, and especially today, because I know that getting ready for a demonstration and doing it does take time.
Thank you.
So let's start out with the fact that you work with metal and the process that you go through. But first is, what attracted you to doing metal sculptures?
Oh my goodness, I grew up in a heap of metal, basically. My father collected metal to make cars, and I told him that if he didn't do something with them, I was going to turn it into artwork. So I had a dream once, and I was welding. And so I followed that dream. I took classes at Sierra College and learned how to weld. And I started making artwork and was showing in a gallery within 6 months.
And you're still working or associated with Sierra College?
I am. I'm teaching welding classes. Technical-based classes, not necessarily art, but we do a lot of creative stuff in my classes.
Well, it does start with that technical.
It does. You have to really know all the skills and the techniques behind working with metal, understanding the content of metal so that you can have a good weld.
Now, you don't just stay with one type of metal. You actually use metal that is old.
I do.
You
I
repurpose
love old
a lot
stuff.
of stuff.
Yes. I hunt for metal everywhere I go. So I recently went to the beach and I picked up some metal from the beach. These were old chain parts from a very large ship, and they've been eaten away, rusted out a little bit, and I just love how they are so fluid and really bring a lot to my pieces. These have a history, and so when I put them in my piece, it kind of gives them a new life. I love that part.
Well, I like that part about it, your work too, because it is the repurposing of so many things and taking things that a lot of us will just walk by and not notice. So you guys have a relationship with Recology.
I do. Auburn Plastic Recology allows me to come in and pick up metal. I am considered their artist in residence for Auburn. And they have a big, huge art program in San Francisco and in other locations. But in Auburn, I get to come in and go through the metal pile. Everything is separated, so I don't have to deal with trash. There's a huge pile of metal, and I can go in and I can take some pieces that are special to me.
And I know that you have people who drop off things at your place.
I do. Not always things that I absolutely love. And sometimes I have to take things to Recology.
I was going to say, this is good when you have a relationship with Recology.
Right. No, I still have to pay to have it dumped. But,
oh, no.
But it's okay. It's all right.
Now, I'm particularly taken by these. And I am so excited to see what you do with these because, as you said, I look at them and go, this is an amazing find.
I thought so, too.
So I'm going to be excited about seeing this.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to see what I come up with, too.
Now, when you pick up stuff like this, do you have an idea how you're going to use it when you find it? Or is it just, okay, I'm going to put that in the collection?
You know, it kind of works both ways. Sometimes I see something and I know exactly what it's for. I found a piece from the 1800s that had, gears in it, and I knew that it looked just like a seahorse face. To me, looked like a seahorse face, so I came home and that's what I made. But there are times that I find incredible pieces and I'll hold on to them. I've held on to some for 20 years and finally figure out what I want to do with it.
I have what I call art possibility files.
That's good.
So if I see a photograph that I see and I go, oh, I would really like to do that,
yeah,
I stick it in my art possibilities.
That's great. I call it my secret garden.
Okay.
It's this massive pile of all sorts of different kinds
or the
of metal.
garden of the unknown.
It is. It is definitely
point.
At that point, yes.
Well, it's absolutely a fascinating process that you go through where you can see something that is just a piece of metal that someone has discarded and then you turn it into a work of art.
It's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle for me.
I can see that too.
In my head is the picture in the box, and I find pieces and I know that they go into certain puzzles.
Now, when you do these, do you draw out in detail what you're going to be working on, or is there a free flow that goes with it?
It's usually free flow. Sometimes I have clients that want to see what the piece is going to look like, or at least close to what it's going to look like before I'm finished. And for those clients, I will draw a picture.
So I'm going to insert here is that you not only do work that you are inspired to do, excuse me, but also work that is commissioned.
Yes.
And I think that that's one of the things that makes you so versatile, because you can do that. So you can help not only fulfill the vision you see, but then actually work with the client and fulfill the vision that they would like for you to produce.
Yes, and sometimes I'll meet with a client and we'll talk about maybe even certain words that are special to them and what their needs are. And I build off of the strength of that vocabulary.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the pieces here, which is actually not going to be efficient, a
A
maquette,
maquette.
is this particular piece, and this is going to be a commission piece.
Yes.
And you'd indicated that you had drawn this out, but it was kind of hard to visualize exactly what the final piece would be.
Yes, it's hard to visualize on a line drawing of what it's going to look like three-dimensionally. So I created a maquette for the client. This piece will be about 20 feet tall, maybe 22 feet tall. And it will end up in front of a building in Roseville, down by the Galleria.
And you do all of these pieces here.
I do.
So how do you transport them when they're finished? Because this is going to be a very large piece.
It will be a very large piece, and I will make it in one whole piece so that it has to be transported whole. I have wonderful neighbors that if they break something on their tractor, sometimes they pull their tractor right into my shop and I fix it for them. And I can call them and say, hey, I'd really love it if you could pick this piece up and put it on this trailer for me. And they're wonderful neighbors. They come over and they'll lift it up and put it on a trailer, and then I transport. Usually I have a crane on site waiting for me.
Now, also because of the height of this, will you have scaffolding, or how do you get up?
No, so I'll have a crane, and a crane will take and connect to this piece and lift it up and put it right on the pedestal. And then I'll bolt it down and make sure that it's secure.
Okay, so but I mean when you're working on it, though.
Oh, when I'm working on it?
Yes.
No, it's usually brute strength. Hopefully it doesn't kill me.
You are truly Wonder Woman here.
Well, you do what you got to do to fulfill that creative need.
I think it's called sheer will and brute strength is what goes on here.
Or dumb luck. I don't know
which one it is.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to be anxious to see this one as you create it, and I would love to come by and see that process when you're working on something this large.
Definitely.
Well, let's get to the demonstration that you're going to do for us today.
Definitely.
Can you tell us a little bit about the project that you're working on?
Yes, definitely. And I'd like to talk about safety as well.
Yes.
Just really quick.
Oh, yes.
So when you're a welder, you have to follow certain safety guidelines. As you can see, I have a thick leather jacket on. That will protect me from sparks. It also protects me from the UV rays that come off of my welder. And then I have a helmet and the song.
All right. Dun, 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 dun.
My helmet protects my eyes. It protects my skin on my face, and from the same UV rays and sparks, things like that. I have gloves. I wear my gloves. I'm a safety girl. So I want to be well protected so that I can do this for a lifetime.
Well, the other aspects, I see how big and bulky the gloves are. And doesn't that... How do you do the intricate work? Because some of your work is so fine, and you've got these huge, bulky gloves on.
I think for the most part, you can buy thinner gloves, but when I started, 28 years ago, they didn't have those thin gloves. And so I learned to deal with having large gloves, and sometimes they get in the way, sometimes you can burn little holes in the end, but really I'm comfortable with them, and so, that's what it takes. So I just figure out ways that I can hold on to things if I need pliers or whatever, but most of the time I can do it with these gloves.
Now, another aspect of the safety is that when I've spoken with you before, you actually have an equipment that you have to put on for breathing.
Yes.
And that is, when do you have to put that on?
So typically there are gases that come off of pieces, come off of the metal, and I have to be really careful what kind of metal I use. If it's a painted piece, different fumes are emitted from the heated metal. And so if I'm doing something like that, I have a larger helmet than this, and it actually has forced air that comes in through the top and pushes all of those fumes and smoke out of my helmet so that I'm safe.
Well, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
And, you know, it shows your dedication, because this is a lot to be putting on, and it shows the extremes that you go to protect yourself,
Yes.
and then to work within those.
Definitely.
All right, so tell us about the piece that you're going to work
So
on.
the piece I'm working on is a flying heart. I found a wonderful base that's from the 1800s, and it had a very bent up shape at the top that used to hold a bird cage. And so I have bent that and formed it into a heart shape. One of my signature things is hearts with wings. And so I've been doing them for 28 years, and I kind of changed them quite a bit. I love to use certain found metals and add those in. This one is, it's a piece about protecting yourself and following your own heart. So I have used different shapes of metal that I'm applying to the top to make the shape of the heart. And I used an old folding chair from the 1940s as the wings. I love the texture in the pieces, so that's kind of where I look for certain things when I'm finding metal. I love texture. And so what I'm going to be doing today is applying a piece of metal that I pre-bent that's going to secure the wings so that they're stable, and then go from there.
Well, one of the things I want to point out, which I found amazing when I talked to you before about your artwork and working with the metal, is I just assumed that you heated things up and then bent them when
Right.
they're hot, but you don't.
I don't.
You bend them when they are cold.
Yes, I have been doing this long enough that I'm pretty strong, and so I can bend things without heating them up, and that takes out waiting for something to cool before I can use it. And I find that that's easier for me, because then I can continue with my train of thought and work faster.
Well, let's get started and let's
Okay.
see how you work.
Okay, sounds good. So what I'm doing is I'm going to weld these brackets on here so that I can secure the wings. And there'll be some sparks and some noise. I'm always listening to the weld to make sure that it is a good weld. I can hear it when I'm using my torch. So I want to have proper placement. I pre-bent this metal. I want it to line up correctly. And I want to make sure it's level. All right, here we go. So this metal I didn't clean, so sometimes it's really hard to get a weld to be a perfect weld if your metal is rusted. So I was having a little bit of a problem with this one. I may have to do a little bit more welding. Hang on, I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Okay, so this piece is done. As you can see, it's pretty quick to put a piece together as long as everything is pre-bent and ready to go. I'm going to secure this other side. Make sure everything is lined up. Make sure that the wing is level. So my welder works off of electricity. Every time I pull the trigger on this, there's a little wire that comes through the end of this torch. There's an electrical current that runs all the way through my table to this wire right here. And when I touch it to my piece of metal, it heats everything up and melts two pieces together. So that's how that works. So let's see what's next. I think I need to flip this over, and I'm going to add something to the inside of it. This is a piece that's hand forged. It's about growth. It's flowers. It's also a candlestick. So if somebody purchases this piece, I'd love to see light on in the inside of this. It would flicker and change, and the reflection on the wall would be pretty incredible. So I'm going to add this in. Maybe I'm going to add this in. So I have it in the inside. I want to make sure that it is level to my piece and also in the same line as this base. And then I'm grabbing my torch, and then I can weld that on as well. Double check. I always measure twice and cut once. So it's got to be right the first time. There we go. Let that cool, and then I can let go of it and it'll stay there. So that's it. This has gotten pretty far. I think what I'm ready to do is work on some surface treatment. Surface treatment is basically grinding the metal so that I take all the sharp edges off and doing a textural, some kind of texture on it so that it looks like the light is shining right into it. I love it when that happens. It kind of brings it to life for me. And then I'll seal it with a clear coat, and it'll be ready to go home with somebody. So here's my grinder. This is an angled grinder, and there's a flap wheel. This is like little teeny pieces of sandpaper all laid together, one after the other. And when this spins, it emits sparks all over the place, so you have to be careful of fires. But this will make a nice, beautiful treatment. So here we go. Let's see. I think I need some safety gear, right? I don't need the welding hat. Got my safety glasses. I'm ready to go. So let me show you what that looks like. This is the area I've kind of finished. I probably will go over it a little bit more, but you can see how the edges are smooth, and it gives it a nice, beautiful finish. Okay.
So we had heat, fire, and sparks.
Yes.
But something that the people on that are viewing this are not going to be able to experience is the smell.
There is some odor that happens with this. Some of that is the smoke that comes off of the metal itself when it's heated. Other is, the smell of the disc for grinding. There's a lot of different smells, and it really depends on how old the metal is, and if it was around oils and things like that, because metal is porous. It soaks up everything that's around it.
Well, this has certainly been a treat, as I said at the beginning. I'm always excited to come here, and I'm always excited to see your work. So we're going to break here, and we're going to go out and see some of your work. But I think that before we do that, why don't we put at this point how people can get in contact with you and come and see your studio?
That'd be great. That'd be great. So my website is jjohnsonstudio.com. And there's contact information. You can email me directly from there. You can come see me during the North Auburn Art Studio Tour, or also the Auburn Plaza Arts Studio Tour.
ACPC.
Thank you very much. I'm just an artist. I just want to work.
So
couldn't do it without them.
And certainly, if anybody wants to come by, they just give you a call.
Yes,
and
please.
They can come by.
Please, you can find me on Facebook as well.
There are a lot of brochures around too. The brochures are now out for the upcoming November Placer Arts Tour, and there's always North Auburn Artist Studio Tour brochures that are still circulating. So if you do want to get in contact with Jennifer, certainly you can get that information from the brochures, or come see her during the tour. So let's show them a little bit of a treat of what we can see during the tour.
Let's do that.
So now we're going to take a walk around Jennifer's garden. And it is a special garden because it's so unique. And one of the first pieces we are looking at is...
This is Center Stage.
And this one I love because this shows the type of work you do with just pounding the metal and to make these very smooth surfaces.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, again, it's like a jigsaw puzzle where I cut the piece to form and fit into certain areas, and then I shape it with a hammer to make everything the way that I see it in my head.
And then when you do the work that's up in here, was this like a totally flat piece then that you bent it?
So this was just a metal rod, and I bent it kind of in a zigzag form and cut it as I needed it and welded it on.
So when you put it on, so you're talking, so it was a solid piece and then you've cut it through to create these cuts in here for these? Is this what?
It was a piece like this.
Oh, okay.
A bar.
Gotcha.
A round bar. And I added that in and as I needed it.
I think that's absolutely fabulous. And then when you demonstrated the grinding, then that is obviously an intricate part of doing this because you get such a smooth surface for all of this and such a nice blending of working from one piece that you've worked with and with the other.
Yes, some of that grinding is so that I can make sure that the welds aren't sharp, and the edges of the metal, because when you cut metal, sometimes it creates a sharp edge. And then the other is for the surface treatment.
Well, this is such an amazing detail, and even down to where we've got the high heels, this is one of those things is you're supposed to tell people, don't do this.
Right.
Don't do this.
Don't do that. Don't do this at home.
Absolutely amazing. So you've got these high boots and then these two figures doing this incredible routine. It's amazing.
Thank you. This is definitely a circus act. A little bit of the burlesque mixed with a circus theme. And I wanted to have the horses looking the same. The horses, it's all only welded down on one back leg for each horse.
Yes, and we've talked about that before too, is how you stabilize these. And it does seem like when we see the pieces like this, there are only two pieces that are bringing it into this platform you've attached it to.
Usually I need the platform so that I can make sure that things are stable. But I want them to look like they're going to run right off of the pedestal. You know, my goal is to make everything look fluid and look like it's alive.
Well, I think there's so many intricate parts of this particular piece that this is just amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing this one.
Definitely.
We're going to stay here and we're going to put in another one of her pieces and talk about it.
Yeah.
The next piece is a little bit smaller, and I actually could carry this one over to this platform, whereas the last one, Jennifer, with her massive muscling, got to move the other one. This is one of my favorites, and actually this one's coming home with me. This is called Lovebirds.
Lovebirds, yes.
And what draws me to this is, I think what attracts you to it as well, is just the colors that are in it.
Yes.
And
these are all coffee cans. So there's a Hills Brother coffee can and I think a Folgers in this. And the base is from an old wood stove from the 1800s.
Now, when you're working with this is particularly dangerous is because of the fumes that come off of the paint that is on the metal.
Yes. So it's a really challenging piece to make, and I don't do these quite as often as I used to. The paint can be really toxic when it burns and when you weld it together. This is also a really difficult piece to make because of the thinness of the metal. The metal is tin thin, and you can melt right through it so quickly.
Now, one of the things I've noticed about the last piece and the intricate detail that you have, and then when you get to this piece, is that I marvel again, is that you're doing these with those big gloves on.
Yes.
To me, it'd be like trying to paint with oven mitts.
You should try it sometime.
Oh, yeah.
It might just spur on creativity.
It could. I think I just did it going. Well, I obviously do love this one, so thank you for sharing this one.
Thank you.
So we will move on and we'll talk about some more of her pieces. So our next piece is one that I've always enjoyed because it is somewhat whimsical.
It is. It is. This is called Lizzys Wild Ride, and this is also about a circus act kind of thing. And this is a bear, and he's riding a car with his umbrella.
You know, I'm beginning to think you wanted to run away to the circus.
I probably should have.
So again, this is again that process that you're talking about, where you're layering the metal and pounding it into place. Because again, she doesn't heat this metal.
No.
And then just through the welds and then the grinding have created such a beautiful, smooth surface.
Thank you.
And one of the things, too, that I've always loved about your work is it's meant to be outside.
It is meant to be outside. Most of it. The lovebirds, not necessarily so, because I think that eventually that paint will exfoliate off of the metal and it would rust. So it wouldn't look as pretty.
Fiona's going to get jealous. She's outside.
They can wave at each other through the window.
Okay.
So this piece definitely meant to be outside. It has a lot of found objects in it. This is actually a cap from an old oil can that you would get at a gas station that was made out of cardboard. And you would take this and you would poke a hole in the cap and screw this on, and then you'd be able to pour your oil.
What is this work that's around here? Where did this come from?
This part is part of a lamp. Some chandelier. Some kind of chandelier. The base, the car itself, the wheels came from an old wagon. This is a toolbox. This front end right here came from a car from the 40s, a taillight. There are gauges on here. This piece is a ladder stay from an old wooden ladder from an orchard. It locked the ladder in place so that it wouldn't slide.
You know, I think you were into repurposing before it got popular.
Oh, I think so. Definitely.
Let's make
People just thought I was crazy.
the mother of repurposing.
You do. I don't know if I can bear that many children.
So this is, there's just so many elements to this one as well. And I think that's the thing, again, going back to your work, is there's so much you can see, and every single time you look at them, you see something different.
Definitely. I like to stay more on the whimsy side. That's kind of where my mind lays when I'm dreaming and sleeping, and I'd rather be smiling and laughing than anything else. So my work stays in that same line.
Well, you bring joy, and your work brings joy.
Thank you. You're either laughing at me or laughing with me, right?
Well, no, they're supposed to be laughing with you. Isn't that the preference?
Yes.
Well, I think we're going to wind it up here. And as always, it's absolutely such a treat to be here.
Thank you.
And thank you
for
very
coming.
much.
Thanks for coming.
It's great that you're sharing this with our audience.
Thank you.
I also want to thank North Auburn artists for their continued support of Meet the Artist. And as always, I thank you for watching Meet the Artist on Auburn Community Television by tuning in to Wave Channel 20 or possibly turning on to YouTube. I want to thank you for tuning in today, tomorrow, and maybe in the future. So who knows, there could be an artist around the corner.